What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Triple H podcast. Happy Hour Hoops. Happy Hour Hoops is brought to you by Win Streaks. Guys, it is so simple, and the best part is it's free. You download the Win Streaks app, you pick teams to win games, accumulate points based on those picks, and then win cash prizes weekly. WinStreaks is 100% free to play, like I mentioned, and you can use this for sports like the NBA, NFL, NHL, college basketball, and football when they return. And of course, the summer sport of them all, the MLB, Major League Baseball. All your favorite sports are on the WinStreaks app. 100 players win cash prizes every week up to $2,000. Contest runs every week from Monday to Sunday. Again, guys, no deposits ever. Use our code HHH when you sign up. Win Streaks app, go download it, guys. And as for our basketball listeners, it is almost time for the NBA Finals. My Celtics made it in. Steve awaits the Mavericks potentially, most likely, probably. No other team has blown a
Don't
3-0
say that.
lead.
Stop it. Stop.
Oh, come on. Come on.
We're just one game, one day at a time.
It's
One
like,
day at a time.
it's like series that have happened. Come on.
No jinxes. No jinxes about the show, I guess. But guys, we're nearly NBA Finals bound. We're almost near the promised land. A lot of different weird emotions on the show and the NBA world. And we're here to discuss and be a part of all of it. Steve, let's check in with you. How are we doing? Mavs up 3-1. Lost a tight one last night on Tuesday night. Where are we at?
We're feeling great, Tony. We're feeling great. I get they lost game 4 against OKC. They lost game 4 against the Clippers. Mavs apparently they've won both of the game 5s in kind of a convincing way. In the past 2 series, Luka's the best bounce back player pretty much in the NBA playoffs history. If you look at just his stats wise, they love the bounce back game with Jason Kidd. Kyrie couldn't have played worse. PJ Washington didn't shoot well. Luka didn't really even shoot well after about the first half. You know, the stars didn't play great. Karl Anthony Towns was 4 or 5 from 3. Haven't seen that really all series until last game. So I'm not feeling too bad. I knew Minnesota wouldn't go down without a fight. And, you know, even though the Mavs were up 3-0, we got to remember all 3 of the Mavs wins were close in the fourth quarter. But I'm not worried about that because I trust my guys. I trust my superstars, Luka and Kyrie, to be more consistent closing in those games, in those type of situations. And if you guys remember what I said when we were doing the initial Timberwolves Mavs prediction, I was saying these are 2 teams that I don't think are really going to get blown out in this series because they're both so good at coming back. And we've seen in pretty much all 4 games, there's been times when the Mavs have been up a little bit, the T-Wolves have been up a little bit, and every time the teams make it close going into that fourth quarter, the Mavs kind of pulled away. Luka had some absolute heroics in games 2 and 3, but I knew the T-Wolves wouldn't go down without a fight. That's just not how they've been playing all year long. They're built like a tough team. They're a team that faces adversity. So they got one, but I got all the faith in the world in this Dallas Mavericks team. Even if Lively isn't going to play in Game 5, I just think that they are a different team. And this is the Mavericks team that I wanted to see when they made these moves at the trade deadline. This is the Mavericks team that we kind of saw a glimpse of, kind of flashes of, when they had that winning streak after the deadline acquisitions of Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. And this is a Mavericks team that's kind of playing their best basketball at the perfect time in the season. And to be here talking about that they're up 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals, you'd ask me that about 3-4 months ago. I'd be like, wow, we made it to the Western Conference Finals. Like, this is a completely new team, completely new identity. You know, I think the biggest compliment I can give the Dallas Mavericks is you have 2 of the most offensively talented players in the world in Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. And what's been talked about this Mavericks team is their defense, their defensive intensity, their defensive toughness. And that's been the big difference maker. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. The only thing I'm feeling a little bad about, a little sad about, is that I'm going to have to kill Stevie Boston once the Mavericks close out the series against the
You
T-Wolves.
can't just, like, tie him up and put him somewhere. You just got to take him out immediately. There's
I'll
no
bring him
hope.
back. I'll bring him back to life. I'll
Okay.
bring him back to
Okay,
life.
all right.
You know, I'll bring him back to life. Maybe I'll give it a couple weeks after the NBA Finals. Maybe sometime in July. Maybe after the 4th of July.
Very quietly,
weekend.
Yeah.
I'll bring him back when either the Celtics are just getting pooped on. They're gonna get pooped on either way, right? They're either gonna get pooped on because they won a Mickey Mouse championship, is what everyone's gonna call it, or they'll get pooped on because they came up short in the finals again. Which right now I'm kind of hoping that's the one where I gotta defend them a little bit. But Donnie knows I've always been an ally to the Boston Celtics. I've always been the biggest Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown defender.
This is true.
But if Mavs are in the NBA Finals against the Celtics, I'm not gonna say all bets are off. I'm gonna be on my best behavior, but I'm not gonna be backing up the Celtics. I'm not gonna be defending them for those 2 weeks.
No, we know this. We're expecting this over here, and that's great. That's the best part of sportsmanship and talking shit against going against your friends in sports, because this is rare. And it's we have a podcast divided now, like me and Jay Cab for Celtics Cavs. It just so happens to be on the biggest stage in our favorite sport. So if you guys enjoy listening to Happy Hour Hoops, this potential finals matchup, I know I do think the Mavs are going to get in, but it's I don't want to discredit the T-Wolves at this point. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. We're gonna talk more Mavs T-Wolves kind of at the later half of the episode. Starting, we haven't done news and notes in a little bit. Not really much news outside of what's happening within the playoffs. But we do have some coaching news, starting with Ty Lue signed a long-term extension with the Clippers. He is one of the highest paid coaches in the league now. I mean, well-deserved. All you ever hear is media, other coaches, players of past or present talking about, how good of a guy and coach Ty Lue is. So this, it kind of makes sense. I think we all saw it coming. The Clippers were trying to do this. This is more so of just, what will this Clippers team look like next year? Who will the cast be that Ty Lue is coaching? I don't think any of us have questions about, what kind of coach Ty Lue will be going forward. I think we all know that.
Yeah, this is it makes all the sense in the world. He would have been the most coveted. If Ty Lue went on the open market, he would have been the number one coach on every team's list that's looking for a head coach, right? Like, so it's a no-brainer to keep him around. I don't think Ty Lue has been the reason the Clippers haven't broke through since he joined there. I think it's unreliability of Kawhi being around, even this playoff run specifically. I think that's the biggest thing it comes down to. And then Paul George, as much as we love him, we hate him, he's got playoff P for a reason. I don't think he can be the number one guy. Probably never been able to be the number one guy on one of these teams. Mm-hmm. So I think Ty Lue's done a great job as it was, especially with the Lakers looking for a new head coach. You want to try to tie Ty Lue up for as long as you can with that money. You want a good coach. They're heading into that new arena next season, all that stuff. So he definitely deserves it. I don't know if it does anything else for them, but in this day and age of coaches that just get fired after, in some cases, 38 games or whatever it was for our boy Adrian Griffin this year. Like, it's nice to see a team just choosing continuity and going forward with it. And so I always respect that. And so I'm happy for Ty Lue and happy he's sticking around.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Lue's one of those coaches where I'm going to be honest, I'll be the bigger man here. I think my opinion on certain coaches has kind of changed in the past few years, where NBA coaches to me always felt like a revolving door. Oh, they're not important. They're not important. You don't really need them. They're not the game plan schemers that you see in the NFL. But sometimes and I think the NBA kind of shows more than any other sport is you have that reputation where you earn the players' respect, right? The NBA is probably, where the players have the most power of any of the four major sports. And it's a lot of personalities to deal with, right? It's a lot of personalities with a lot of star power. And Ty Lue is one of those guys that has shown that he's able to handle that. He's been able to handle that in the past. And if you want to talk about a team, and like I said, we don't know what the Clippers are going to look like in a few years, but if you want to talk about a team with a lot of different personalities, a lot of star power, a lot of, guys who are vocal in that locker room, that's the Los Angeles Clippers, and you need a guy like that. So I can't say really a bad thing about Ty Lue, and the Clippers haven't been the most successful team in the playoffs, but I think in the NBA, I think my opinion has changed a little bit where, like I said, I thought coaches were kind of revolving doors. Doesn't matter who your coach is. I think there is a group of guys where it's like, okay, they're respected around the league. They're respected by their peers. They're respected by the players. And that goes a long way in the NBA, where I think it goes a lot longer of a way than the other, 3 major sports.
Yeah, I agree with that. At first when I saw this, I was like, this is just the Clippers kind of locking up their guy in Ty Lue, and maybe we expect some changes, but I was thinking initially maybe this is just like a run it back situation. But then when I was thinking about it more, with the new arena, Ballmer trying to make all these changes for the Clippers, and I guess not all these changes, just the arena, and trying to, start fresh, I guess. Get away from the Lakers a little bit, kind of have their own identity finally. And, they're still going to be in LA, but just some separation from the Lakers. Signing Ty Lue, locking up, making sure you have a good coach. Because what Steve said, some of the NBA coaching positions is a revolving door, and we just see these guys get passed around. And coaches who win championships, they get the boot even if they were very successful 8 months ago or a year ago. And then a new head coach, like we saw with Adrian Griffin, like Jake mentioned, he gets the boot after seemingly doing nothing wrong except winning, or just nothing wrong, because winning isn't something that you're doing wrong. But Ty Lue getting locked up by the Clippers, do you guys think maybe we just see a full-on blow-it-up rebuild from the Clippers, and maybe they just wanted, to start all things, make sure we have our guy, make sure we have our head coach, and then, here comes the storm of Paul George is gone. Do they move on from Kawhi? Obviously, Russ and Harden are two expiring guys at this point, even though I think they both had pretty good seasons for the Clippers. I don't know. It seems like this could just be a new age for the Clippers, where they want to make sure they have a good coach for when they ultimately do go young. They have this new, state-of-the-art, all new stuff in their arena, and it's, all these exciting things. Could you guys see a full-on blow-it-up rebuild and kind of just pull the plug on this Clippers old star-studded roster?
Not while Steve Ballmer's the owner.
Yeah,
he's not blowing up. He may make some crazy moves, but I don't think
I saw the other day they want Chris Paul or Kyle Lowry. Yeah. They're just like, we're getting older, bro.
Yeah, it's no rebuild with Steve Ballmer. Yeah. They'll make some wild moves in the offseason probably, but no, it's not a blow it up rebuild. Not while he's the owner.
If you're Paul George, I think Paul George is leaving though. I don't think Paul George is staying.
I also think that.
I don't see that. I don't see why he would stay at this point. Unless he just wants to live in LA, but he could have the hometown return to Indiana, which is still on my mind there. Obviously, Philly wants a star. They've made that very clear, I think, the last couple weeks. So yeah, I don't know if it's them blowing it up, but it might be Paul blowing it up. And then what do you do? Can you really trust Kawhi as like your number one the rest of the way? Did they get involved in the Trae Young sweepstakes, the Garland sweepstakes? Like,
Carl, there's gonna be guys Towns, depending how this series ends.
Yeah, dude. We'll talk about that later on. We'll talk about Towns.
All right. Yeah. No, I guess that makes sense. Ballmer is this guy who, the Clippers roster looks the way it does for a reason, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
That's if they fucking bring Lowry or Chris Paul into this group, that is insane. I did not see that. That's too funny. So I guess they're not doing that, but some definite changes are coming, but the coach will stay the same for the Los Angeles Clippers. Other coaching news, JJ Redick, favorite to win the Lakers job.
He's been the favorite for like 2 weeks now. Like we just keep getting reports from a reporter, like, "Oh, JJ leading candidate." Like every
Gotta
day.
shout out LeBron for that though. Unbelievable. Get a podcast.
Bro, he told us what he was doing.
I was gonna coach the Lakers. I mean, just unbelievable. Like, he did it in front of everyone, right? It's like when you do it in plain sight, it's like no one even bothers to notice until it's too late. It's like, this was LeBron.
He said the only guy I want to talk basketball on in front of people is JJ Redick. Oh yeah, and he could be my coach too. Like, what the fuck?
Who would you guys rather have for a coach, JJ Redick or Ty Lue?
Ty Lue. I haven't seen it from Redick yet.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it's like I just haven't seen it, right? He could be an absolute disaster. We've seen former player coaches be successful, and we've seen former players go into coaches and be train wrecks. So, yeah, Ty Lue.
I think you gotta say Ty Lue, but the fact that the Lakers saying he's the next Pat Riley, that was a report from a week ago. Now that's high praise for what you are.
Yeah,
but if there's somebody
you could say
that can make this transition, JJ Redick, I feel like is like the perfect temperament to be a modern NBA coach because JJ's not gonna put up with shit. Like I don't think JJ is. I feel like the thing that people think about JJ Redick is that he would get pushed around or something like that. I feel like that's going to be, I think he's going to be very good at managing the egos among everything. There's just the way that he kind of looks at the league. It seems like he has that temperament. Okay. And it's dealing with LeBron. It could be dealing with LeBron James. Yeah. So that's obviously, who knows? And if it's LeBron's handpicked guy, as it seems it is at this point, right? Like I don't think the Lakers were looking at JJ Redick until LeBron decided to do that. So
I don't think JJ Redick was looking at coaching before LeBron decided to do that.
I know. And that's the thing. He literally came out of nowhere. Yeah. So
actually, I like that. I like this take, Jake, because I think I haven't really looked at JJ as a coach in that lens before. But that's a good point. And if we want to talk about dealing with big personalities, because a lot of people say that is obviously part of coaching in the NBA, I think probably more than any other sport. And, whether that's because there's only 5 guys on the court at a time and they make all this money and, there's no equipment. So you're with the guys face to face. JJ Redick also dealt with Stephen A. Smith on First Take for quite some time. So if there's anyone who has experience dealing with big personalities, it's JJ Redick. And he's gone on, all the ESPN shows. He actually went on Boston local radio today, Felger and Mavs, for those of you guys who are familiar. And he just ripped Mike Felger, who is just he's a classic talk radio guy. He's just a hater on the radio, gets people to call in. And Redick kind of slammed him today, which was awesome. But all that to say, Redick has already dealt with the big personalities as a player and as an analyst now. So I don't, that part for him shouldn't be an issue coaching.
It's going to be interesting to see I feel like the only reason it's not been announced yet is because they're waiting until after the finals when he's done, announcing his duties for it. I bet you the day, maybe even in the post game, LeBron's going to put out a tweet like, welcome our new coach, welcome new Lakers coach, congrats.
People will be talking about LeBron the day after the NBA Finals.
I will be one of them because I'm still holding out that 1%. Did you see today, LeBron James apparently has a great amount of power with the Lakers, as we said. Apparently the only person who has more power within their organization, according to Brian Windhorst, is Donovan Mitchell with the Cavs. That's what I'm dealing with in my life is 2 players, my favorite player of all time running his team and my favorite team getting run by another player. That's where we're at in modern day NBA.
It's just a big game of chess.
It's Game of Thrones, bro. It really
is. Game of Zones.
Yeah,
you guys remember that?
That was great.
Who did that? Bleacher Report?
Yeah, I believe so.
That was really good. They got to bring that back. But to answer my own question, I think obviously the answer is Ty Lue, especially like if this is like who would the Lakers rather have? I still think that's Ty Lue. Mm-hmm. I will say, though, because if you guys remember when JJ Redick first was rumored to possibly be coaching this upcoming year, it was actually with the Charlotte Hornets. And if I'm the Charlotte Hornets, I think I might rather have JJ Redick than Ty Lue, just because I think bringing Ty Lue in there to coach the Hornets will just make Ty Lue look bad, will probably frustrate him, And, I think the Hornets group that they have right now and this isn't really a knock on any of the players, it's just a lack of inexperience and then just winning the last, 1, 2 years, 3 years, depending on who the specific player you're talking about is. But like those guys don't even know how to win yet. So to have a championship level head coach come in and, kind of just try to expect that or try to get that out of them right away isn't always the recipe. So I think if Redick was to start out with the Hornets and kind of, he's learning the way as well as the players are learning the way. So I think Redick, in that situation might be a better fit than Ty Lue. But yeah, if we're talking just like starting any team, I'd probably say Ty Lue over Redick. But yeah, that's our little coaching carousel of the day. That just always seems to be happening in the NBA. Just revolving door, like Steve said, right? It's just, who's available here? Oh, Mike Budenholzer got hired again. Oh, Mike Budenholzer got fired again. Oh, Frank Vogel got hired again. Frank Vogel got fired again.
Right.
It's, there's a select group that are always rotating. There's a select group that get locked in like Ty Lue. And then there's the youngest head coach since Bill Russell to go to the NBA Finals. Joe Mazzulla. Joe Maz, the highest win percentage as a coach in the NBA. Guys, are you guys ready to talk about the Celtics for a little bit?
Yeah, we might as well talk about the Celtics. Yeah.
Stevie Boston's not gone yet.
Yeah, I'll give Stevie Boston one more day.
Mothering him right now.
Like one more day to breathe fresh air. Stevie Boston. I will say, Donnie, you play who you play. The people who are trying to discredit the Celtics run, first off, they lost 2 games in 3 series. So I don't care I don't care who you're playing, who your opponents are. They lost 2 games out of 14. Out of 14 games, they lost 2 to playoff teams. I get there are injuries here and there, but also, too, the Celtics had the 1 seed for a reason because they won 64 games and they won the East by 15 games. Like, everyone trying to discredit this run or trying to discredit what the Boston Celtics have done is outrageous. And like I said, I might go a little too in on Stevie Boston because this is going to be probably the last day you see him for a few weeks. But the fact of the matter is the amount of disrespect that has been shown on the media side or just on the general fan side towards the Boston Celtics is outrageous. It's out of control. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown averaged both nearly 30 points a game. I think Jason was over 30. Jaylen was just below 30 in the Eastern Conference Finals. I get you're playing the Pacers, not the best defensive team. I get Halliburton missed 2 games, but the Pacers still got there. They still won 2 playoff series to get there, and you basically
could also argue the Pacers played better in the games that Halliburton
you
wasn't
could.
in.
Nembhard was unbelievable.
He went out of his mind.
Yeah, I didn't think he had that in him.
Nembhard was unbelievable. But you have to give credit somewhere. You can't just keep discrediting a team because you dislike them. And I think that's the point we've gotten to, where people are just discrediting the Boston Celtics because they just don't like them. The fact of the matter is this is the best team. They're going to be favored regardless if it's Dallas, regardless if Minnesota somehow does the impossible, which we're not going to talk about because Dallas is going to get to the finals and Boston will be favored against them. It's just the case. They earned that. They deserved that. And when you look at this Boston Celtics team, it's almost more encouraging for me than discouraging of who they played, is because it's like, yeah, this team just it's like a new guy steps up every night. It's like people want to say, oh, well, Tatum's not carrying his team like Anthony Edwards was. Like, dude, Tatum went 30, 10, and 6. He should have won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. They gave it to Jaylen Brown, I think, mainly because of the shot he made, and his stats were close enough to Tatum where you can, pick one way or another. It was a 5-4 split. It was a 5-4 split. Tatum should have got it.
Consistency from Brown too. I wasn't even thinking about the shot. That's a really good point too. Between the shot, the 40-point game, and then just being the best shooter on the floor. He has one of the highest field goal percentages in the whole playoffs. Let alone on the Celtics. So I think just the steady hand of it all, stealing game 1 for them, and then the 40 ball obviously helps as well.
Drew Holiday was exceptional in the conference finals.
He had a case, if you ask me, for
absolutely
conference finals MVP.
Absolutely. We saw what Derek White did in the first series, right? We saw what Derek White did kind of early in the playoffs. Hasn't really gone off, but he's been a solid option. Al Horford has been fantastic for the Celtics. It's just, they have so many options. They have so many guys that are just experienced and just kind of know how it works. And the fact that people are still trying to discredit this team and saying Tatum's not carrying when he went 30, 10, and 6. Yeah, he didn't shoot great percentage-wise from 3. He went 30, 10, and 6 in the conference finals. He put up great numbers during the playoffs. And who cares who they played? The Celtics won 4-1, 4-1, 4-0. What are we talking about here? It's one of the more impressive runs in my mind. I get that there were players injured on the opposing teams they played. People don't want to mention that they don't have Kristaps Porzingis. We don't need to talk about that because the Celtics injuries don't matter. It's just their opponents. But it's what else can this team do? You just play the team that's in front of you. Yeah, the Pacers maybe played them tougher, but it's the playoffs. You expect the games to be close. You expect them to be tough. But if we're just looking at it in a vacuum here, Celtics won 4-1, 4-1, 4-0, and their superstars put up great numbers. We're on to the NBA Finals. Kick your feet up. You got 8 days of rest.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that part because the cool part, and I think an important part of being a Celtics fan right now, is obviously that the rest is huge for Horford. It's huge for Porzingis. Yeah. Who said today that he expects to be back in the finals. So that's a breath of fresh air for all Celtics fans. And, being able to rest 37-year-old Al Horford, who had to play over 40 minutes in multiple of these playoff games, that's a luxury. I think the best part about this break, though, is for Celtics fans, if you can, just take a moment to not turn on ESPN, not go on NBA Twitter, and just think about what we have in front of us and what we've been watching the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years with these guys. The Celtics are going to their second NBA Finals in 3 years. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both have Eastern Conference Finals MVPs now under their belt. We were just talking about it. We have 3 guys who are up for that award. That's how good this team is. That we could sit here and have a legit discussion about which of the 3 guys deserved that trophy. Not to mention we have a guy who averages 20 plus points per game who's not even playing right now. No. And it's just crazy. It really is crazy that the run we're on, the season, the regular season that the Celtics had. And then Steve, you just mentioned it, 4-1, 4-1, 4-0.
Yeah.
Haven't lost on the road in these playoffs. Have shown that they can win big and win by 25. They've shown that they can take a game to overtime and win in that fashion as well. It's really just a great time to be a Celtics fan, and I'm sure every other fan base doesn't want to hear this right now, but I do think it's important for other Celtics fans to realize, hey, it's okay to be happy about where we're at. And, I know it's Boston and everyone has these expectations, and as the outsider should and as the insider should, but this is nice that we have this long break until the finals start because it was one of the greatest regular seasons ever by a team. It's an incredible postseason run so far. Jaylen and Jason are playing as well as they possibly can next to each other at the moment. And, we have a 7-3 guy, Kristaps Porzingis, coming back for the NBA Finals. Right. So it's a great time to be a Celtics fan. It's a great time to be just an NBA fan in general because no matter what this finals matchup is, it's going to be absolutely bonkers. And it should be Luka and Kyrie versus Tatum and Brown, which is just fucking awesome.
Oh.
So enjoy it, guys. And let's get to the NBA Finals and hopefully make some noise. But yeah, I think I'm done with the media stuff. I just think it's I've had enough, heard enough, and I'm trying to have the positive outlook here. It's crazy, bro. The straw that broke me was after Jaylen Brown got his Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Just all ESPN could do was talk about, was Tatum actually happy for him?
I know.
These guys are good friends. These guys have been teammates for 7 years, man.
All those things being said, you're exactly right. The hate on the individual players, Dunny, please don't watch any national media stuff. It's not going to be good for 3 weeks. You should just enjoy this run because it's a special run. No matter who's in front of you, no matter what, like Steve was saying, it doesn't matter. Going 4-1, 4-1, and 4-0 is impressive if it was against the 3 worst teams in the league. Like these things there are levels to this. We're winning in that. All that being said, though, if there are people that want to critique the run, the Ringer today, easiest adjusted injury pass since 1984. The Celtics do have the lowest adjusted wins to that. Like that's one stat of many that you can throw onto there. So Dunny, I'm just saying this to you to prepare for even if you win the NBA Finals, that for years and years come, you are gonna this stat. You will see that stat when they're talking about Jason Tatum can have 6 rings. And they're going to be like, yeah, but that first one was a fraud because the adjusted wins was 37.3 and blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's right, not saying you should do it, but I'm just saying the fodder's out there where they're a polarizing team and they're going to be a polarizing team whether they win this title or lose this title. And that's the luxury of being one of the brands, the luxury and the curse of being one of the brands, not just in the NBA, but all of sports really right now, right? Like the Celtics feel like the Yankees, like in the old days right now, the treatment and the talk that you're getting about it and where media is just coming after you or just fans in the league. Like it's going to be, especially if it doesn't even matter. Whatever team wins the West, like we're going to have that, those maps that they do before series, like who's cheering for the Celtics and who's cheering for everybody else. New England will be green and the rest of the country is going to be blue. Like that's what we're looking at with this.
Yeah, no, you're right.
The only thing I'll disagree with you there, Jake, is I feel like if the Celtics win, I think it would go away with time. I think at first people would discredit the finals. They discredit. As
someone who sees LeBron's 4 rings discredited every single day, I don't know if it goes away.
Yeah, yes and no, though. I don't think it's like the general popular opinion is to discredit LeBron's rings. You know what I mean? There are people who will just hate LeBron no matter what he does, and they'll discredit everything he does. But I think in overall, the kind of general public opinion, the media, I think will go away a little bit if they win the ring. And the biggest reason I say that is we look at kind of previous examples. Nikola Jokic was, they can't really perform in the playoffs, right? Jokic doesn't really play defense. Yeah, he's a regular season guy. Denver wins the championship. Now he's talked about as one of the 15 greatest players of all time. Giannis Antetokounmpo, kind of the same situation, right? With the Milwaukee Bucks, where can you win with Giannis? Like the outside shot, is it consistent enough? Blah 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 blah. This and that. The Bucks win the championship. It doesn't really matter what their road was to get there. No one really kind of discredits Giannis anymore. I feel like with Jason Tatum, and maybe this is me trying to be just too hopeful, but I feel like Jason Tatum almost was too good early on in his career, where they had long playoff runs, obviously, right? They lose in the conference finals early on in Jason Tatum's career. They've always been to the playoffs. They've been to multiple Eastern Conference finals. As Dunny said, their second NBA finals in 3 years, right? But you don't have that championship yet. And I feel like that's where people can latch onto, and that's what people can discredit the Celtics team for. However, and this is barring a catastrophic injury on the Dallas or Minnesota side, you can say whatever you want about them getting through the East. If they're beating a healthy Dallas or a healthy Minnesota, you can't say anything else about this team to discredit their run. Because what if we heard this entire year, the West is just so much better. The West is just so much better. The West is just so much better. Dallas, 2 very impressive series wins, right? Over the Clippers, which coming into the season was one of the favorites to win the championship. Then Dallas beats OKC, the 1 seed, who everyone, this was the team ahead of schedule, but this was the team that was, according to the metrics, was like the number 2 team after the Celtics all year long, right? This was one of the best teams from start to finish of the regular season, most consistent. This was a team that was elite in offense, elite in defense. You look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? They swept the Phoenix Suns. That was potentially like the super team, supposedly at times was the favorite to come out of the Western Conference this year. Another team that had one of the best NBA Finals odds at the beginning of the season. Then they beat the defending champs, the Denver Nuggets, in 7 games on Denver's home court to finish it off, and now they're battling with Dallas. So if Boston is able to beat a healthy Dallas, hopefully, or Minnesota, I have to say because I can't have any of this clipped if there's a catastrophe. But regardless, if Boston's able to beat one of these teams in the NBA Finals, you can no longer discredit like saying they played a soft schedule, because they beat 4 games against one of the best teams, right? One of the best teams that came out of this Western Conference that we've been talking about as one of the best conferences we've ever seen, one of the most stacked conferences we've seen in a long time, where you have LeBron James and Steph Curry in the play-in. So that's where it's like, I think if Boston gets the championship, yeah, there's going to be people hating a little bit, but it's just going to kind of fade away. And Donnie will be able to watch ESPN again without losing his mind or pulling all his hair out when they try to discredit Jason Tatum for, going 45, 12, and 8, but he missed 2 threes. Like that's the point we've gotten to with the media's coverage of Jason Tatum. So if they win, I think that goes away. Now, if they lose to Dallas or Minnesota, then I think that's when it's really going to kind of build on the Celtics, because that's like, well, did they even deserve to get here, right? They got through the East. But as I've said, as Stevie Boston said, he's still alive right now. You can't discredit. They just played who they played, and they, like I said, they won 12 games. They only lost 2 in the playoffs, and this is a 64 regular season win team with some of the best metrics in NBA history. And if this was happening to any other team besides Boston and maybe a few other teams, we wouldn't be discrediting. We'd be praising this team for how dominant they've been. It's just because they're the Boston Celtics. And like I said, Jason Tatum was almost too good too early, where people liked Tatum for a few years and then they got sick of him. You know how everyone is in sports. Now they like the shiny new toy. And then once, the older guys win a championship, they're like, oh, he's awesome. Alex Ovechkin, I say bring this comparison up all the time in the NHL. Like, what, can you win with him? Can you win with him? Yeah, all he does is score goals, this, that, blah, 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 this, that. Ovechkin wins the cup. How many people came out of nowhere being like, oh, I always loved Ovi. Ovi, one of my favorite players. Like, it just happened. That's how sports happen. For some reason, it's hard to win a championship, but the common fan doesn't realize that. And until you win that championship, they'll discredit everything you do.
Even with Kevin Durant, which is funny because a lot of people don't kind of what Jake was talking about, a little different than the Celtics situation and what happened with LeBron and the scrutiny he gets. But like, people discredited KD's rings right away. But even so, the general population
those are fraud rings.
He was the best player in the series. Both rings.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Congrats.
But that's what I mean. Like, there's I think, there's just going to be both, no matter who the superstar is, no matter who the team is. And I embrace that. Like, I don't get me wrong. Everything I just said, I understand like what's at stake here. I've said, I don't know, since the very beginning of the season, because I think there's a part of me early regular season where I'm like, oh, Denver still scares me a little bit. And, here we are with Denver not even in this thing anymore. But I'd say, probably since a couple months into the season, I've been saying championship or bust. And I think if the Celtics do lose in the finals here again, that, they kind of, I don't want to say deserve, but I think everything that comes their way as far as criticism, if this happens again and they get to the stage and they lose, if everyone's healthy, then I think, as much criticism coming their way is probably fair. But it's a crazy world we live in as far as media coverage with sports. Do I wish, they did a little bit of better job, just kind of, and I don't need a parade every time the Celtics win, but just, I don't know, just you guys know where I stand with it. Everyone else who sees it and is an actual basketball fan knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy sometimes, and this is where we're at. But I'm trying to focus on the good right now, and I do think they're set up for some scrutiny if they don't get out of this one with the trophy, which is what I'm hoping for. Before we move on from the Celtics, I do just want to shout out Derek White because he is not a guy that we said could have won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, but he's just, for me, so fun to watch and such a breath of fresh air. I know there's so many guys on the Celtics that are fun to watch, but I'm a huge defensive minded guy. I liked that style when I played. I like watching defensive guys. He has 18 blocks and 12 steals in the playoffs.
It's nuts.
They've only played 12 games. He's 6'4" and has 18 blocks, and he's a plus 81 in these playoffs. Like he's just and he was shooting so well in the first two series, especially in the Miami series. A lot of people would say he had cooled off, which he did, but he's still shooting over 40% from three in the playoffs as well. Like I don't think Derek White gets enough love, so I just wanted to shout out some numbers there for my guy D White.
He's fantastic. And like I said, I want to look ahead because I don't want this to get clipped. But one thing that I would absolutely just love as a basketball fan, all bias aside, as a basketball fan, because it hasn't happened yet where a team has the ability to kind of guard Luka and Kyrie one-on-one and get away with it. Drew Holiday and Derek White. If Derek White can match up against Kyrie Irving or Drew Holiday on Luka Doncic, and obviously you have Tatum and Brown too. The Celtics, that's what scares me. They're so good at switching on defense, right? Mm-hmm. That is something I would love to watch because, like I said, when I think he's clicking, I don't think there's anyone in the world who can guard Luka Doncic one-on-one just because he's so good at making contested shots. And obviously we know what Kyrie Irving's capable of at his ceiling. But then on the opposite side of the court, like I said, I don't want to look ahead, but I have to bring this up. But then on the opposite side of the court, P.J. Washington and Jarek Jones Jr. have been playing unbelievable on-ball defense for all three series for the Mavs, and they have the perfect length and size to guard the Jays. So that is something to me where we have so much talent offensively, but the opposing team, the Celtics with their guards defense, and then the Mavs with their kind of stretch forward defense, have almost, I don't want to say perfect matchups, but the right matchups to maybe give the Stars some fits. Like I said, don't want to look ahead, but that is something as just a basketball fan, all bias aside, I would love to watch those matchups.
Yeah, I agree too. I think if we get that, the Jalen on Luka matchup will be insane. The Drew Kyrie, however that goes, D White, whoever he is on, and then like you said, man, Washington and Derek Jones Jr. have just been playoff risers and are playing at the peak of their ability, and there's no question about that right now for both of those guys. But yeah, they, like you said, they're just the perfect size, almost like prototypical guys that you would want to create to play against the Jays. You have a couple of them. So the defensive matchups, obviously all the offensive power speaks for itself in that potential series as well. But let's end the episode talking a little bit Mavs Timberwolves here, and then we can look ahead a little bit with the Mavericks Celtics potential matchup, which we all think will probably happen.
Yeah, barring a catastrophe, Steve never showing his face on the podcast again, all that. Barring that, we should see Celtics Mavs, hopefully.
Jake, what I'm curious to know, because obviously we started the episode with Steve's thoughts on this series outside looking in, because I even have my biases, even though the Celtics aren't in the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, they're awaiting their opponent from it, but I'm still invested in the way I'm watching. For you, no real horse in the race here. Who do you like, but what have you seen so far, and what do you think of this here? Are you shocked by the Mavs being up 3-1? Do you see this coming? Is it cool seeing Kyrie Irving playing like his Cleveland days at the highest level again?
Well, I'm very happy. Like the Kyrie Irving, I was funny because I was talking to my brother yesterday, who, as you know, big Celtics fan, big guy, loves the Celtics,
huge.
And I said, for you guys, Kyrie Irving coming in, like I've seen so many things about him stepping on Lucky, all this other stuff. The rest of the country, Kyrie Irving is going to be like the great redemption story in all of sports. Like that's really where we're at with Kyrie and the way he's played in this conference finals. It was great listening to him after game one. He was on Inside the NBA, and they asked him, they're like, listen, Ant said after game 7 that he wants Kyrie. He's going to check him. Did that motivate you at all? And he's like, laughs. He's like, of course it did. And not that Kyrie Irving needed more motivation, but he, like Steve, you were begging for him, like get aggressive in these first halves, like get more aggressive early on, get to your shot. And maybe Kyrie was waiting for when he needed to do it. Maybe he didn't even realize that he was deferring as much to Luka as he was. But whatever it was, Ant clicked it in for him, and he has been that aggressive type of player. So that's the best thing for me, like watching a player that has been one of my favorite through all his ups and downs in his career, has been one of my favorite players of all time, kind of have this renaissance in this moment alongside Luka is impressive. I'm shocked that the Wolves are getting their, like, it's not even that they're getting their ass kicked. Like they've been competitive in these games, but now I feel like we can go back with our victory lap. This is what we worried about with the Wolves coming into the season and even going into the playoffs. And we were talking about it, like, can the Wolves really get it done? And yes, they manhandled what turned out to be a really overmatched Suns team. They beat the Nuggets. They get them in game 7 in a classic series. That I have a lot of questions about that Nuggets team, and they think they have a lot of questions, especially about that bench and their contributors and the guys alongside Jokic who's there. Like, I think that sometime in the summer we're going to have a nice conversation about Murray and Porter as running mates with Jokic if they can hold up as time goes on. Not discrediting the Wolves. The Wolves played great defensively in that series. They earned it, winning it in 7 games, everything else. But I think and Dunny, you've got this in the doc too. Were we premature in anointing this team because it was still a Rudy Gobert team and they were playing the best offense that they were going to see with dealing with Luka and Kyrie? And Edwards hasn't lived up to the moment, and he's 22. He really shouldn't. The fact that he was even getting into these conversations was pretty amazing. The Ringer, Steve, did you see the Ringer 25 under 25?
Oh, I saw.
Okay.
I saw.
The fact that he's number 2 on this list is absurd. It's beyond absurd. Like, and it's no hate to Ant. Like, I think that he's got all the potential in the world, could take this league by storm, but he hasn't shown to be that kind of scorer where he's coming in and killing people this whole series. And they don't have guys that could score alongside him. Like, they just don't. They don't have, like, McDaniels can't keep that up all the time. Cat has been a major disappointment. Then you asked her if he was going to get traded. I don't think so. I think you got to run this team back mostly. But the Cat problem is not going away either, right? Like, this has been Karl Anthony Towns' whole career. We're seeing the streakiness of what he's been able to do. And it's Gobert and drop coverage again. It's literally been 8 years of talking about Rudy Gobert and drop coverage in a big playoff series and them having to do it. And I'm hearing all this talk, listening to all these podcasts. They're talking about it again. And I'm like, how are we having it? Like, we know that he can't play in the, eventually if a playing again elite offensive player, he's going to get figured out. And Luka and Kyrie have figured him out, where last night there's a part of that game, Kyrie missed a layup late in that game that I thought he should have got, and he had Gobert on him, and Kyrie looks so excited to take Gobert to the rim. Rim, Kyrie Irving.
Now, a couple times the
greatest finisher, and he's one of the greatest finishers of all time. He's not going to lack confidence going to the rim against anybody. But that's, Rudy Gobert, who we're talking about, was supposed to be like
4-time DPOY.
All the accolades, all that shit. And we're talking about the same stuff with him every year in the playoffs. And I don't know what the Wolves do to answer that question, because no one's been able to answer it. The Jazz couldn't answer it. And the Wolves are in this scenario where they were right on the cusp, and they're having the same issues crop up with 2 of their 3 stars. Really 3 issues. Ant hasn't been able to be a number 1, and Cat and Gobert having their issues crop up at literally the worst time. It's tough to just enjoy it as a, like, Wolves fans were on such a high, and now you just see all the warts get exposed because this Mavs team is so incredible, and because Luka can just dissect you, even the best defenses, clearly.
Right.
But it's tough for the Wolves, but it seems like it's like we were right about them going into the playoffs and even throughout the year. Like, I don't know if we can trust this team when it comes down to it.
Yeah, but I don't think also too we can discredit the Wolves for what they did. Like, obviously, we were very low on the Wolves at the start of the year. We've brought that up multiple times, how we were all much lower on the Wolves than how they ended up. They still swept the Phoenix Suns with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and then they beat the defending champs in a war 7-game series. You do that with a 22-year-old as your best player, Anthony Edwards, and like you said, Karl-Anthony Towns he has his moments, but he's been inconsistent. He hasn't been like a true, like, this is the second guy, go-to guy in our offense. So it's really hard, I think, to, look negatively upon this season for the Wolves. This is kind of like the future's bright type of deal with the Timberwolves in my mind, regardless of what happens in this series. But I got to give, the Wolves credit in the fact that when Karl-Anthony Towns is playing bad, or when Rudy Gobert is kind of getting picked on and putting in tough situations where he's got to guard a guard one-on-one on the outside, which he's never been good at. Even though he's won 4 Defensive Players of the Year, Rudy Gobert has never been good at guarding, an elite guard on the perimeter. I got to give the Wolves credit where these other guys are stepping up. McDaniels has had some great games this postseason. Mike Conley has done nothing wrong. He's done everything you want, that type of veteran guard to do with Mike Conley's done. Naz Reid coming off the bench. He talk about a playoff riser. Naz Reid, I know he won 6th Man of the Year. Kyle Anderson has been torching the Mavs in his little mid-range in this series. And it's just guys like that have kind of stepped up for this Timberwolves team where, besides game 4, Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns haven't really looked like the 2 superstars on this team. So you got to give the Wolves credit. And also, too, and this is me being as non-biased as I can, it's almost good that the Wolves didn't get swept because the series never felt like a sweep when the Mavs were up 3-0. Game 1 was close. Mavs kind of pulled away in the end. Game 2, Luka hit an outrageous, shot over Rudy Gobert for the 3. And then game 3, kind of same deal. Close. Mavs pull away a little bit at the end. What happened in game 4? It was trending that way where Mavs were almost looking like they were going to pull away a little bit. Karl-Anthony Towns just hit some big shots, which he hadn't done in the previous 3 games. JBC knows nothing, by the way. JBC knows absolutely nothing, by the way. But regardless, like, these games have all been close. And that's what I said before the series started. I expected no blowout games. I didn't expect one team to win by 30 one game. The next team wins by 20 the next. Thought these were all going to be close because both of these teams have shown throughout the year that they know how to overcome, being down in a big hole early on, or they know how to overcome maybe poor shooting night, or they know how to overcome, this team, they just can't miss right now. They have 5 threes in a row. We got to figure something out. Both these teams know how to kind of go on those runs, and basketball has always been a game of runs. So despite the Mavs being up 3-1, despite the Mavs who were up 3-0 and had a chance to sweep, all 4 games have been close in the fourth quarter. And if Luka's 3 doesn't go in, we could be talking about an entirely different series. Yeah. It could be a 2-2 series. And I hate saying that because I wanted nothing more than the sweep and the Mavs to just get to the finals against the Boston Celtics. And they still got a couple chances to do it. But this has been a very competitive series. This is not your typical 3-0 series. It just wasn't. So I have to give the Wolves credit there because Anthony Edwards hasn't had his best series. Karl-Anthony Towns was terrible until last night. But the Wolves were competitive in all 3 games.
Yeah, and a couple things on the T-Wolves here. First, I want to start. Did you guys see Kyle Anderson direct that last play last night? The final, or not the last play, but Towns' final 3 of the quarter, which was kind of the dagger.
Yeah.
Kyle Anderson told Towns to go to the corner, waited for Towns to get there, screened Towns' defender,
right in front.
and then kind of makes a face at Anthony Edwards from across the court and gestures to pass to Cat, who's now open because he's setting the screen for him. And obviously, Cat hits the corner three. T-Wolves kind of have the dagger from that. I don't remember exactly what happened after that, but I'm pretty sure that was the nail in the
hit
coffin.
the end 1-3. Then
Oh,
missed the
yes.
free
Okay,
throw.
so yeah, it did get interesting still
Yeah.
after that, but it was essentially the dagger. Right. So yeah, shout out Kyle Anderson for that, because when you were talking about his mid-range and stuff, which has been awesome, and he's just a really solid player who probably doesn't get enough love in general. But that was really cool to see that kind of slowed down, and the process there basically saved them the series. And that's the other thing. Cat showing up last night and hitting those threes is the fucking funniest thing I've seen. Obviously, it wasn't
That's basketball.
Yeah.
That's basketball.
It's
you
a
go
lot of averages too, because I'm not taking anything away from Cat. He's struggled at the beginning of the series, but he's almost a 50, 40, 90 guy this season. So he's having a good year. Once the first one went and he shot the second one, I was like, no way that was going right. And it did. But then the other thing, kind of to Jake's original point about how we felt about the Timberwolves, this series is weird because I almost thought these playoffs would be a combination of our expectations of the Timberwolves and what we've seen in years past, and then what we saw in the Phoenix series and the Denver series, which kind of is what's happening in this Mavs series with the T-Wolves. But the only thing to me is I don't know what happened other than maybe Ant losing a little bit of his confidence, because I agree with you, Steve, that these games have all been close in this Mavs series, but something just feels different with the Timberwolves. Like they don't really, it seems like they lost some of their mojo or swagger, or whatever you want to call it. They had about as much as you can have in the Phoenix series. Obviously, they got slapped in the face a couple times in the Denver series, but they had this shit to them, and I haven't like felt it or like seen it really watching any of these Mavs games. And I wonder if that's just, that just shows how important Ant is to this team and this group, because when he was playing out of his mind and his stats were really good, the confidence of him and the team were way up here. He has a few poor shooting nights. They lose a few games, and it seems like everything kind of deflated.
Yeah.
And, outside of Cat, who's a big personality, probably for the wrong reasons for the Timberwolves, they don't really have many other vocal or big personality guys. Like, we know who Gobert is, but he doesn't, I don't think anyone is considering Gobert a team leader necessarily. And then Mike Conley is the other guy, I would say, but it's almost like
Conley's the opposite of Cat, or like opposite of Ant, where he's like even keeled. Yeah.
Go to him for like advice on the bench or like in the locker room, but like not necessarily a leader on the court. And I'm not trying to trash any of these other guys, but it does seem like emotions go through Ant.
They feed off of Ant. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I agree. I think the emotions feed off of Ant. I think the difference is not the Timberwolves. I think it's the opponent they're playing. You look at the Phoenix Suns,
obviously,
right? Kevin Durant, Booker, they haven't really said much. They've kind of been a little quiet. The Nuggets, Jokic is never talking shit, right? He's never doing his thing. Michael Porter Jr., Murray, always kind of quiet guys. You're playing the Mavs, and this is crazy that I'm saying this about the Mavs because it wasn't the case about 4 or 5 months ago. This is a tough team. This is a tough team that's going to be in your face. It starts with Luka. We've known this for Luka's entire career. He loves it. He loves when people are chirping him. He loves when guys are getting in his face because he'll get right back in your face. And you saw the photos that he had against Gobert. You saw the photos where he's standing over Anthony Edwards. Like, he's that type of guy. Like, he will give it right back to you. But you got guys like PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford that they acquired at the deadline, that they're going to do the same thing. Derek Lively plays with a ton of emotion. Derek Jones Jr. So it's a little bit different, I think, because we saw the Timberwolves in the past couple series as, this is the big bad team, in your face, emotional. And the Mavs are just kind of doing that to them.
Yeah.
So even though the Timberwolves are kind of doing it a little bit, the Mavs have been the team that's really shown of like the emotion and in your face. And really outside of Ant, no one else is really doing that on the Timberwolves side. So I think that's where the difference is, Donnie. I don't think anything of how like the Timberwolves like has changed. They're still playing very tough on-ball defense. They're still playing very, very aggressive. However, the Mavs aren't backing down. And like I said, this is crazy that I'm saying this, but the Mavs are a tough team right now. They are a tough team. They're in your face, and they're going to let you know about it. And I think that starts with Luka Doncic. He is a superstar who can match Anthony Edwards' intensity and, ability to kind of get under your opponent's skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Mavs are just a better defensive team too for Ant. Yeah. Like a better, more well-equipped defensive team, along with everything that you just said, Steve. Couldn't agree more. And it's given him issues. He'll figure it out. He'll figure it out in a couple years where he'll have the answers. He just don't have them yet. And he can't will it against this team, because there's a guy on the other side who has willed it for years and years. You know what I mean? So it's a learning experience. All these teams go through it. All our teams have gone through it in the past. That's where they're at with this build.
My last few things here before we wrap up. Obviously, I just had a long-winded talk about the Timberwolves, but yes, I think the credit is due to the Mavericks more than the poor play of the Timberwolves. I think it's the Mavs are the reason that they controlled this series. It's not that Cat and Anthony Edwards are shooting poorly. It's that those guys are making them shoot poorly, and then they also have to deal with Kyrie and Luka, who they're not the best or most dynamic backcourt ever. I think that's also something that ESPN's running a little too far with. I think that you would even agree with that, Steve, even though they've been incredible, but this is their first conference finals together. I think
they played one playoffs together, 1 year of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Let's see this for 4 years.
It's also like, can we just fucking enjoy it?
I know.
This
Why
is
do
awesome.
we have to compare to everything?
Exactly.
I don't understand that. Why does everything have to be a comparison? I know it gets the clicks. I know it gets the overreactions and the takes. But come on, man. Just enjoy it. You're right.
Yeah. But no, all that to say, Luka has been so fucking good, man. Oh, yeah. Like just even the and-1-3 at the end of the game. Obviously he missed the free throw, but all you have to say is of course he fucking hit that, man. Of course he did. And my favorite part about Luka in this series actually is the passing, which obviously he's always had. He's an incredible passer. He just seemed to figure out the Timberwolves defense so quickly, because I think it's a thing he does a lot, right? His offensive move, the low post, and even free throw line extended. He's so good at slowing down the defense and using his body and just shooting when he wants to shoot. But he also does the same thing with passing. He passes when he wants to pass and when he thinks it's exactly the best time to do so, because passing obviously is a huge art form of the NBA, but there's just something so different about the way he does it. He'll up fake a defender on the Wolves and not wait for that first guy to commit to him, but he'll even throw a second fake pass or just kind of hold his fake somehow, and he's just positioned in the air he's fading away, but he's not going to. Waits for a second defender to come, and then he'll just have a wide open teammate who's already under the basket getting a layup. And it isn't that simple of a pass all the time either. No. He'll throw those cross court and it will be on a dime to a guy in the corner who you're watching from home and you could barely even see. It's just I've been blown away by Luka in the series and these playoffs, and I think his passing is actually something that I can't look away from when I see a Luka Doncic pass.
I completely agree. He plays at his own pace, and he knows where everyone is on the court for both the offense and the defense at all times. He knows where Minnesota's trying to guard the other players on Dallas. He knows where his teammates are, and it makes it so impressive. That one pass he had to Derrick Jones Jr., the second three Derrick Jones Jr. hit from the corner, where he just kind of whipped it across. He was a no-look pass. Yeah. He wasn't even looking at him. The pass he had around the back of, I think it was Gobert, could have been Towns, to Kyrie Irving, is the shot clock's going down and Kyrie's on at the three-point arc. It's how do you even see that? How do you even see that develop? And the one thing I will say, because I could talk about Luka Doncic for hours. I still think he's the best basketball player in the world right now. I could talk about him for hours. But the one thing I will say is the fact of the matter is that he's still doing this with two bad legs right now. He's still doing this with his knee injury. He's still playing through it. And his shooting, his shooting splits, his shooting percentages haven't been the best. but he's just not letting that bother him. You see him on the side and he'll bite the towel because he's in so much pain with his legs. But he's like, all right, I just have to go with this speed now in this series. And he does that. He puts the guy on his back. And once you're on his back, it's game over. He's going to get whatever he wants, whether it's a contact shot, whether he's going to get the step back, whether he's going to get the floater, whether he's going to pass to someone, or whether he's going to lob it up to one of the big men. Once he gets you on his back, he knows I control the court right now. And it's
especially when he still has
a
his
joy
dribble.
to watch.
If he still has his dribble and the defender's on his back, he's either scoring, assisting, or getting fouled. And there's literally no other option.
There's nothing you can do to stop him. And that's why I was like, you know what? I applaud the Timberwolves for being so stubborn and still trying to play Anthony Edwards one-on-one against him and McDaniels one-on-one against him. You can't play him one-on-one. You just can't. No. You have to blitz him. And if Lively's back in game 5, that's an issue because Lively has been phenomenal on the pick and roll against the blitz. That's where Gafford needs to get a little better. That's where Maxi Kleba, with his shoulder injury, has to do a little bit more than what he did in game 4. Lively, as a rookie, is unbelievable at it already. I could talk about Lively for 2 hours. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is like you cannot play Luka one-on-one. Doesn't matter if he's hurt. Doesn't matter if he's healthy. Doesn't matter who the defender is. You have to just switch up your defense on him because one-on-one, he's going to get you on his back and it's over.
Yeah, and I mean he nearly did it to a point where he swept the Timberwolves last night. So 3-1 now for the Mavs. Obviously, I think we all have the Mavs advancing to the finals. Steve, you think they get it done in game 5?
Yeah, I do. For a couple of reasons. Number one, Luka's been better on the road these playoffs than he has at home. I think he just loves the crowd, like rooting against him. Yeah. He loves it. That's his personality. He loves that. And number two, the Mavs under Jason Kidd are phenomenal on kind of the bounce back after losing. We forget the Mavs lost game 1 in both of the series against the Clippers and the Thunder. They won those series in 6 games each. That means they won 4 of 5. They win on the bounce back. They have lost in the past 2 series, the previous game 4s, and then game 5 has been their best game. So I don't expect anything different. And it's also, too, you're going into a hostile environment playing a Minnesota Timberwolves team. Timberwolves have kind of struggled at home against Denver. Mavs won the first 2 in Minnesota. They have the confidence. I would have loved the extra 2 days of rest, but I feel very good about game 5.
Jake, you think it ends in 5 as well?
I think so. It was so close last night even, man. A couple shots down the stretch, and we could be talking about – we could have had 2 episodes to preview the NBA Finals. That's how close we were. So I think it's inevitable. I think we'll get there. I think by this time next week, Wednesday episode is gonna be interesting.
It's
gonna be crazy. Yeah,
one night before.
That's what's nice. Next week we can do our full finals preview, so we don't have to speculate and make Timberwolves fans upset. But there'll be a lot of Mavs Celtics talk next week. But right before we go, I did want to do this when we're talking earlier. Real quick, I'm going to give you guys just numbers, and you guys tell me what stat this is. It's from the conference finals. I'm not going to tell you which series. In games 1 through 3 in the conference finals, mystery which series it is. Game 1, 30, game 2, 25, game 3, 28. What do you guys think that stat is?
30,
it's a play, like it's a player
28.
stat.
It's probably not going to be points because that's too obvious. I'm going to say no because he had more. I was going to go PRA for Drew Holiday, but I know he had more than 30 in the one game. Oh man, you're not giving us points. Points is too obvious. I refuse. I
feel like it's minutes. I feel like it's minutes.
Minutes for
I don't know. Yeah.
30, 25, 28.
30, 25, 28. Games 1 through 3.
Yep.
Pascal Siakam. I don't know. I think he played more than that. It's going to be something weird with minutes. I don't know what. I can't.
Can you give just – is it Eastern or Western Conference? Come on.
It's Western Conference.
It's Western. All right. 30, 25, 28. 30, 25, 28. Is that Kyrie Irving points? No, it's not because he had 30. He had 30 in game 3. Yeah, he get 30 in game 3. It's not Kyrie Irving points. 30, 25, 28.
One
I
more
don't know.
guess each.
Man.
Feel bad doing this at the end now.
Is
No,
it
you're
fouls? Is it like fouls? Maybe 3-point attempts? Could it be something like that?
30,
I don't know.
25, 28. Let's see. How about points scored for the Mavs that weren't assisted or scored by Luka or Kyrie? 30,
Oh,
20.
that's a
No.
good guess.
It's far off, but I do like that guess. It's Karl Anthony Towns' shooting percentage. In the
Oh,
first 3 games.
wow. Wow.
Oh, I didn't want to. I didn't think you were gonna be mean, Donnie.
I know.
Not
That's
mean,
why I
it's
felt
just
bad
fact.
because it was like I meant to do it when we were talking about Cat, and now it's just a whole separate thing. But he shot
fact.
69% in Game 4, and that's kind of my thing. That's kind of the whole point I did this.
Yep.
He's supposed to be the Timberwolves' second option. 30,
Yeah.
25, and 28 from your 7-foot second scoring option is real bad, and that's a big
Not
reason
great.
why the Wolves are down 3-1. But thank you guys for listening to Happy Hour Hoops. Go follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1 on all socials. Follow Trainwreck Sports on all socials. Go download the Win Streaks app. Use the code HHH when you sign up. It's 100% free, and it's wicked fun, guys. Go do it. Finals next week. Potentially Steve versus Dunny matchup. Podcast divided. Mavs Celtics. Best time of year. Later, guys.